Community at Worship. It's co-authored with Dr. Christopher Wells. Chris was the elder of worship at First Baptist, and it talks about how each congregation has a unique theology of worship based upon three buckets, based upon their theology, what they believe and think about God, especially in the area of worship, how we approach God in worship and how God approaches us in worship. Culture, which, could be your ethnicity, but it also, can be, First Baptist, for example, has 130 years of history. We have some patterns built into our worship where if we don't worship in a certain way, then something is being done incorrectly. And then practice is just the, when one worship service is over, you're going to do another one in 7 days. How do you get from one to the other? Who picks out the music? Who's responsible for putting together the bulletin? Is there a rehearsal? Who leads worship? Just the nuts and bolts kind of stuff. And we talk about how a lot of our conversations in our churches around the idea of worship are based upon likes. I like this, I like that, this makes me feel good. And not really thought out ideas based upon a theology and a culture and a practice.
That sounds like a perfect book for like a seminary, for a Bible college, for a college, religion department to really assign the students, but also for a congregation to kind of work through, okay, this is worship. Who are we worshiping, why, and
See,
what's our calling in that?
Worship ought to be our primary thing, right? Like if you look at all the things that churches do that separate us from, that make us unique from the rest of the world, like worship is our thing. Like, it's, you look at, we do service. Okay, well, so does a bunch of other people. We have meals together. I can get any meal you put together in a church, I can get a better meal somewhere else in the community, Well, we have teaching. Okay, well, you've got teaching, but chances are I can find equally as good teaching, if not better teaching, somewhere else. We can find this, everything that the church does, you can find it other places. We have community. Well, what?
Mirrored somewhere else.
Somebody else is providing community somewhere else, and but worship is our thing, and unfortunately, it's the thing that we give the least amount of attention to most of the time. It's kind of like that thing that, this is who we are, and we just do this, and we don't really think through the whole process. And the book comes out of the experience that Chris and I and First Baptist shared together, where we were like, hey, we're not good at this. We're not thinking this through correctly. How do we do this? And let's develop our own. Let's really articulate well our theology, our culture, and our practice of worship. And it transformed the way we talk about worship, And so instead of saying, well, I like this and I want that, and I think, okay, how does that fit into our theology, culture, and practice of worship? Well, it doesn't. Okay. Well, we don't do that here. This is where we are. Oh, okay. And then it's, for some people, it's, okay, well, maybe I'll find it somewhere else. Okay, good for you. And then, but for other people, it's like, no, this is who we are. This is why we do this. This is valuable.
This is our calling.
This is
to
our
worship
calling.
God.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So as we were teaching it, we taught it to our elders and deacons. We taught it to the congregation, and soon after that, after one of the worship services, somebody came up to me and we were talking, and I said, well, how you doing today? And they go, well, that was an absolutely terrible worship service. I go, really? why was that? Well, I didn't like this and I didn't like that. I said, okay, help me think about that through the lens of our theology of worship. And we have 7 slogans that help us think about it.
What are 2?
Our worship is about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, well, was our worship about Jesus? Absolutely, it was. Okay. Another one is worship is work. And I said, well, was worship? What about this one? I said, well, the people up front worked. Okay. But I stopped. You stopped. Yeah. Okay. Sing unto the Lord a new song is another one. We do this. That we don't believe the hymnal's closed. That we're constantly adding to the hymnal. And she goes, well, see, that was the problem. I didn't like that new song. And as soon as you sang that new song, I stopped. And it was just like the light bulb went on. She goes, oh my goodness. I stopped working at worship when we did the new song. Problem wasn't the worship service. The problem was me. And I said, look, I'm not going to tell you that. But if you feel that, then maybe it's something you want to wrestle with. And she just started laughing. And she goes, I think it was me. And I said, again, I'm not going to tell you that. I said, but if you feel it, it might be something worth exploring. The conversation was much longer than we went through the other slogans. And it was just, it was just transformational. And in the past, what I would have done is somebody come up and said, well, that worship service was terrible. I would have left going, oh my gosh, why can't you do this? Why can't you have a good worship service? What's wrong with you? And instead of me carrying the burden out, like, something I did wrong, I didn't do anything wrong, I did what I was supposed to do. It's just, all of us have to work together to worship well. Yeah.